Hi, my name is Darren, co-founder of P4P, Passion for Performance, the leading e-assessment and e-portfolio platform in Africa. As part of my journey, I have been selected onto the PSET Post-School Education and Training Cloud launch group. This is an initiative that's been set up by JET Training. And over the past 4 years, they've been researching and exploring different ways in which post-school education and training cloud, a new platform, can be set up to enable education in a digital world. It's a very exciting space to be, and I'm very honored to be on this launch group. As part of the growth, there are a few papers that they've written that I've gone through, and these sessions are talking about or through the different papers. I'm currently talking about the PSET Cloud scenarios for the PSET Future paper. This is a very interesting paper where they have dived into the possible futures for South Africa and what that means in scenarios and what it means for post-school education and training. In their papers, they came up with 4 different types of bridges as an analogy towards what could be in the future. And this is what the discussions are over the next couple of weeks. I'll be talking about each bridge in a bit of detail and my understanding of the bridge and what the scenarios look like in terms of what we can prepare for. Please download the paper in the LinkedIn discussion below, the PSET Scenarios 2021-2030 paper, because when you download it, you can see what I'm talking about, and they've given some really, really good opportunities for you to be able to actually do some scenario planning within your business and within your company to launch your skills development into the future. Good luck with that. It's the PSET Cloud Bridge the Gap type of bridge. So Bridge the Gap Citizen is a very interesting citizen. On the y-axis, you have government that takes responsibility, or the government ignores the responsibilities as a government within the country. On the bottom one, you have the citizen. So the main media fed consciousness, which makes a frustrated citizen because you're only getting mainstream media. On the other side, you have a community consciousness, which is an engaged citizen. And this is kind of my understanding of what the scenario is about. So let's go through it. So your main media focused or fed consciousness, where you fed what the main media tells you, which causes frustration, and where the government takes responsibility. I think what we start to see here is the youth take a stand and the government have to listen. Or they choose to listen because they are forcing the mainstream media, to tell the rhetoric that stops thinking. And so your youth do what the government tells your youth to do, and so the government are seen to be listening. This is where the corrupt officials are rooted out, or what main media tells you corrupt officials are. So remember, the government has a rhetoric here. They're taking responsibility. They're forcing the rhetoric through mainstream media that you then begin to go, oh, corruption looks like this, without thinking about what corruption could look like. You start rising up going, yes, corruption looks like that, and the government's listening to us. Corporate and controls soar. So you see more corporates and more controls coming into place, and people have to pipe down. So if you're not talking about our rhetoric, and you're not talking about the way we think, we will censor you. And, we are responsible for what's going on in the country, and therefore say what we're saying, and we've got a democracy. Thank you for the vote. Okay. At this type of scenario, the government encourages corporate employment, gives massive tax breaks to massive corporates for recruitment, forces BE scorecards for recruitment, so that the big corporates are getting all the tax breaks and all the benefits for recruiting many people, and entrepreneurs are kind of left behind. And the government does a good talk show around how we support entrepreneurs, but in the bigger scheme of things, only the big corporates are realizing the massive benefits to a high employment opportunity. Government also becomes a major employer. So I call this the I've been fooled citizen. It's a citizen that goes, this is all good, it looks good, it must be good because the government said so, and we will fit into this space. Okay, now, where the government continues to ignore responsibility, but the mainstream media continue to control the consciousness and the frustration grows, we see a leaderless a country or a leaderless space which is trying to force control. So it's fraction-based, it's coalition governments form, everybody's trying to force their control. The coalition governments are there as just as a tick and a nice to have, but really the stronger coalition forces the weaker coalition to do what they say. Municipal fractions emerge. So you start seeing in the coalition space, fraction forming, the youth rise up and the streets become messy because they're very aggressive against the fractions that are forming. They don't really know what's going on. There's no real leader. There's no real responsibility. They see all the policies and procedures out there. They can't see how they're being applied. The constitution becomes questionable. Corporates do massive retrenching, and learning is not really a possibility. People are trying to survive in this. So you get forced to think in a specific way, never forced. You can hear a rhetoric. Think in this way. This is what you must do. Municipalities can't control what's going on. There's no real responsibility. And I call this the I am foolish citizen, because people start taking the law into their own hands. They're trying to enforce what they believe. The bigger social media houses and mainstream media kind of get overrun by the people who are trying to force their belief systems, and it becomes quite a mess. So what I think would be quite a mess. You might disagree, and that's all good. Please let me know if you disagree. But that's what I see happening in this scenario. The next citizen is the citizen where the government ignores their responsibility, and the community consciousness is high. So in this kind of case, you will start seeing community leaders emerge, and municipal leaders emerge to lead the citizens of that area. The need for tech grows because within the municipal area, people are starting to engage a lot more readily, and they are providing actual commentary of what's going on in the area. That it's not a huge reliance on mainstream media. But as the tech grows, what will happen is, because mainstream media and the technocrats tend to do a lot of censorship on the platforms, there's a need to purchase your licenses so that you can control that more, but then that increases the affordability of the media, so less and less people can afford kind of the media. So it's kind of this bit of a quandrum goes there, but definitely growth for tech. PSET, post-school education and training, is created with public access to data. So there is education happening, it's going online, it's more controlled by the municipalities, the content is driven by local business for the area in which the business is required. You've got your local people getting on board, kind of posting into the PSET space the competencies that the business require, why they need the competencies, how they work. You've got the local people getting on, seeing those competencies, posting their videos of their performance, and the link kind of comes together. In this case, you're seeing a lot of municipal growth, and because the government is ignoring responsibility, you're starting to see kind of more municipal governance growing. The challenge, though, is you have the danger that's lurking is the government supportive people. So although the government is ignoring their responsibilities and the communities are growing, within those spaces, you've got people reporting back to national government what's going on, where they disagree, and it causes kind of a questionable process where the growth is kind of on the edge of sustainability, as long as you keep the government happy, because you're actually not sure what's going on in your space. I call this the I'm nobody's fool citizen. And this is an interesting growth opportunity. So very much more a community-focused consciousness growing, which keeps people more engaged. So it's a smaller, more powerful, the whole country expands, and every community have their own consciousness, which then kind of feeds back into a bigger consciousness, and the engagement tends to grow more. The last type of citizen in this one is where the government takes responsibility and the community consciousness is engaged. So what you have here is a PSET system, data sharing across central access points. So The government is ensuring good policies in place. They take responsibility for the policy. They are making sure that the different municipalities, different regions, different areas are actually putting policy in place and living according to the policy and making the policy work. So you see a decrease in corruption, decrease in party fighting and faction fighting, because it becomes more of a common vision than the government, and a less mainstream media rhetoric is going out, because the PSET system that's put in place, every community has access to it. It's a central access point. It's different rhetoric coming out from different communities that you can access and engage with, and you can start making more informed decisions. And so your mind is more involved in the running of your community and ultimately the running of the government and ultimately running of the country. So it's less democratic from just an election perspective and vote for one government. It's more a case of the government is allowing everyone to have their own way of engaging within their communities, and the community is far more engaged. You're seeing accountability and sustainability at municipal level. So the government's not holding the whip. What's happening is the communities are holding their municipality to account for their taxes, for what's going on. You see growth. Through tech, there's less reliance on national government. So it's a whole bunch decentralized. There's central data points, and national government can kind of track what's going on holistically, but every community, every province, every region is driving their own growth, their own learning, their own infrastructure, their own needs. And pathways to entrepreneurship become far more clear and accessible, because the PSET system in place with multiple touch points starts with an augmented an AI and artificial intelligence tracking each individual municipality in its own space, what entrepreneurship is required, what gaps are in that market, what gaps are needed, how to close the gaps, what entrepreneur skills are needed for each individual, so it becomes an individual place of study on a gig economy with a gig citizen, and the growth is immense. And national government are less worried about the lower level. The tax is reformed and it works in a different way, and your national government then govern nationally, but all your local municipalities become far more involved, far more accountable, and far more controlled by the people. And you see a very different growth. So I call this the I am hope citizen, because every citizen creates hope for every citizen, for every community. And that whole statement of it takes a community to raise a child exactly becomes that. And as the children grow older into adolescence and older teenagers and into kind of young adults, and they start moving the country forward as the new business owners and new business entrepreneurs, all they've known is the support from the area, and growth then is systemic and far more sustainable. And that's my view of the Bridge the Gap citizen overall. So that was the PSET Cloud scenarios, Bridge the Gap. And the P for P, we are the leading e-assessment and e-portfolio platform in Africa. Feel free to contact us if you need some help with creating portfolio-driven work, whether it be for your e-learning, learnership, training scenarios to tick the boxes with the CETAs, and you can take your e-assessment digital, or if you need some assistance with taking your internal mobility, your job profiles into an e-assessment space, creating portfolio-driven KPAs and KPIs, so that your applied competence can be measured a lot easier. Or if you're a governing body and you want to enable your CPD through portfolios, or you want to enable your designation through portfolios, not just written exams, and you have certificates, give us a shout. We can help you with that. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think in the comments.